a Florida Writer podcast, a discussion about writing and other things.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Florida Writer podcast. I'm your host, Alison Nissen, and today I am lucky enough because I have not one, but two guests with me, Jamie, Blaine, and Vicky Lanzone. Welcome to the Florida Writer podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. We're really glad to be here.
Could you give us a 60-second elevator pitch about who you are and what you write?
Sure. You want me to go first? I'm Jamie Blaine. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and I've been a full-time writer for about 12 or 13 years now. Started working in the magazine business, worked for a lot of music magazines, guitar player in classic rock and modern drummer, and all of those kinds of publications. Worked some like Washington Post, worked some in the Faith, and then I started doing books. Had my first book actually come out on ECW Press and then HarperCollins in 2015, and then did a follow-up, and now I help other people write their books and enjoy doing that. So, and Vicky and I just sort of connected almost before all of this began, when I was done with my psychiatric crisis career and trying to figure out what to do next. And I got this crazy offer to be an online love coach. And I'll let Vicky take it from there.
Yes, I'm Vicky Lanzone. I'm a first-time writer, and I come from a corporate background. Things in my life really changed, and then I ended up I currently work for Street Life Ministries in the Bay Area, which is a homeless ministry. So the book really is about when my life changed and how Jamie and I became friends, and how that story unfolds.
All right. I had the opportunity to read the blurb of the book. I have not yet read the book, but the title alone is just enticing. So go ahead, tell us the title and give us a little synopsis.
You know, originally we were going to call it Strangers and Angels Unaware, which was this sort of, it kind of played into the homeless but we're not, this book isn't raising a cause, or awareness for any sort of, homelessness or faith or anything. We're really just telling a story. But somewhere in it, we kind of looked at this thread and said, jokingly, what we should call this book is Life is Crazy and We're All Going to Die. And after we got through laughing, I shared that with my agent and some of my friends, and they said, that's an incredible idea. You have to call it that. There's no book like that. That will stand out. But the reason we really embraced that title was because we felt it was so true. Both of us kind of were on this concurrent path of trying to figure out what's right and what's true and what's, the right thing to put your hand to in this world. And that was the subtitle is Hope in Strange Places. And that's really how it played out on both ends, because there was this realization at the end of all of it, all of our efforts to control things and figure things out, you're not going to figure it out. Life is crazy. Nobody has it figured out. And we all have a limited amount of time here. So, try to make good and decent decisions in the moment, because that's all we've got anyway. And none of us have got it together, and none of us have got it figured out. So that's how the title came to place. And Vicky can add whatever she wants on that, because it was certainly, it was crazier on her end than it was on mine.
So Vicky, give us a little synopsis. What's it about?
Well, I was married for about 28 years. I was agnostic. Living my corporate life, working in the corporate world, and my husband up and left one night. And my life sort of fell apart after that. I wasn't prepared for that. And I was reaching out, trying to find any way I could to get him to come home. And, then I was sitting in my office crying one day, and got an email to sign up for a love coach for $99 a month and get advice and how to help. And that's how I met Jamie.
So Jamie, you were Vicky's love coach?
I laugh every time we have to tell that part because it just sounds so ridiculous.
It's an
I
inside.
was, I've been working in psychiatric hospitals since shortly after high school. My background is in behavioral psychology, went to grad school for that. And shortly after that, while I was still early in college, like a freshman in college, because they didn't have anybody else willing to do it, I became the late night psychiatric crisis guy, like the helpline, call 24 hours a day, you know. Well, I was the guy that answered at 2 o'clock in the morning and went out to wherever you were, the bridge rail or the jail or the emergency room or some trailer park 50 miles outside of the city limits. And you learn a lot about humans and human nature and just about how messed up and hopeful we all are in doing that. But I'd come to a point where I was burned out on that and just too many late nights, too many sad things. And so I was ready to get out of the business. I was going to go work at the grocery store, anywhere. But then before that, I saw this, they were looking for licensed therapists on this website. And I thought, why not? It was lighter. I thought, oh, I'll just give some, marriage tips and it'll be easy. But it just wasn't what happened at all. So it's strange the way the paths intersect.
So at one point, you two decided that the intersection of where your lives crossed is what this book should be inspired by.
Yeah, it was. And I was working at the same time. I was getting my foot into the writing journalism business and started working through some programs and just trying to figure it out and how to do it. So that was sort of happening at the same time. And these stories just kept coming in. The love coaching, that didn't last very long. It was sort of one of those early online therapy programs that just kind of didn't quite pan out. And it was kind of bait and switch and promising too much. But they sort of left the lights on. And Vicky and I continued to, check in through this interface and send messages back and forth. And over time, me working in the business of stories, I thought, wow, there's really a story here, because Vicky had gotten to the end of her rope. And it was sort of that classic hero's journey, how bad do you want something and what are you willing to give up to get it? And she'd really come to that place, but it took me longer to figure out that I was sort of on that journey too. It was my story too, because I had been working in the faith-based business and I had sort of gotten to a very agnostic place. And so it was really, as it became a story, it was very slow, and it evolved over years. But, the other cool thing about it was we never crossed paths. By the time this book was finished, we didn't know what each other looked like. We'd never heard each other's voice. We had only interacted through this interface and exchanged messages. So it's two strangers.
And you never picked up the phone. You never just picked up the phone and said, "Hey, what do you think about this section?"
No.
Well, yeah. I mean, once we got to putting the book together, of course. But I'm saying what the book takes us through, the story that's in the book. There was something, I guess, really conducive about the anonymity of exchanging messages with a stranger, somebody that you didn't know anything about their life. So there was kind of a freedom in that to say what was really on your mind and not worry about it coming home to mess up your life where you live now. It was safe.
What was the process of actually putting the book together? So Jamie, you've written a number of books before, and It sounds like both as a ghostwriter and as a creative. And now you're working, Vicky comes along. So I'm going to ask Vicky, what was it like working on a book as a newbie with Jamie?
It was an interesting process. It's probably a little more difficult than people think. It took us a long. I think we always knew we were going to do this. We've been playing with it for years, right? And it really started out with us telling stories to each other, and that was it. And it's like, there's really something in all these stories, and there were so many stories. We actually had an abundance of stories, right? Which actually made the process a bit easier. But there was a lot of effort put into how to structure this book where it made sense and didn't confuse the reader, I'm sorry. Because it is a back and forth. It's our discussions. And how does that all make sense and come together? So there was a lot of hammering that was done, a lot of rearranging, a lot of going through over and over and over again. It was a really good process too.
So now that we have published, how is marketing going? I mean, are you sort of on the same marketing journey? Are you each taking on your own share of things?
Oh, I'm talking to anybody who stops and looks at me for 5 seconds. That's a whole nother process, right? I mean, that's another boulder to move up a hill every day. And, you just chip away at it, right?
Jamie?
What I discovered in the business was I sort of came up more through the literary world of it. I love David Foster Wallace and writers like that, Chuck Klosterman, and a lot of those people were sort of my mentors and heroes and in the business, and Augustine Burroughs. But that was sort of from an era where you brought your talent, a publisher signed you, and then they helped you get out there to the world. That was that model in that era. So, and writers by nature, we're kind of weird people. We're not social, we're socially awkward. If you're a writer, what it takes to be that kind of person and hole up in your house and spend hours and hours looking at this document and rearranging words, that kind of personality may not be the best in marketing. So yes, when I put my books out, I put a whole lot of work into the craft and all that, but I had come into the era where publishers are wanting you to bring your own platform. So in other words, we'll make your book, but you need to bring your own platform, whether you built that up on TikTok or YouTube channel or, whatever it may be. But if you've got millions of followers, then good, come on, we'll put your book out because you're going to do all the PR and marketing yourself. So that's sort of how I got into more of doing books for other people. And I had done some oral histories and was a big fan of oral histories. And so I saw all of these sort of one-page stories that we had because they were sort of almost in an email format. You tell me, she'd tell me the story about going and passing out clothes from her trunk and meeting the Jerry Garcia looking guy who's passing out McDonald's hamburgers from the back of his bicycle. And so we're sort of swapping these really crazy, great stories back and forth. And yeah, a few years into it, I said, I think this would work as a book. And so it is almost in that oral history format. It's very short, very, very short pieces. And it's very, because we had an abundance of material, we didn't have to stretch. We could really cut it down to the strongest, most essential part of the story. So where there's no fat, it's just bang, bang, bang. So yeah, and now we've got some help, thank God, and with some really good PR out in San Francisco, and they're going to help us try to get this book out to people. And thank God people do podcasts with us so we can come and see how right. Awkward and silly and goofy we really are, and hopefully that will be endearing. That we're not practiced or polished.
That's always the hope, right? Let's connect with our audience any way we can, any way we can. And so I love the concept that you've taken these real life impactful stories and you've woven them together to create a narrative. What do you really hope your audience takes away from the stories?
Go ahead, Vicky.
One of my favorite lines is that, it's actually a quote from Jamie that you're not the only walking disaster in the world, and take heart, you're not alone. And that's it for me. If it touches anybody and reaches anybody and just makes them feel not so alone for a moment and just a little more okay with the world, then it's done its job.
That is our message. Everybody's screwed up. None of us have it together. You're not the only walking disaster in this world. Take heart. You're not alone. And, there's so much sort of us versus them and just sort of this corporate Civil War mentality. Not that we care anything about politics or religion or causes or anything. That's not what this book is about. This book is about individual people, who you are one-on-one. There's more, we've got more in common than we do apart. And none of that really, I'm not a fan of cliches, but I don't think any of that is cliche-ish. I think we've got to start focusing on the things we have in common rather than the things that split us apart and make us want to fight. And so that's what we hope. We hope people take this as hope in strange places.
Well, that's fantastic. How can people learn more about the book? How can they learn more about each of you?
There's a website, lifeiscrazybook.com. And then also it's available on Amazon.
Fantastic.
Oh, there's also Facebook, Instagram, the typical social media platforms, Life is Crazy Book.
Well, that's easy enough to find. Jamie, Blaine, and Vicky Lanzone, are you ready to switch to our rapid fire questions?
Oh, no.
We'll do the best we can and try not to sound like those kids in the back of the 5th grade class who were throwing spitballs.
All right. This one's for both of you.
Okay.
What's your favorite time of year?
Go, Vicky.
I like the fall.
Fall in the Bay Area? Is that different than fall in New England?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, fall in New England would be amazing, right? With the changing colors of the trees. You don't quite get that in San Francisco area, but I like it when after the summer and things start to cool down a bit.
And I am a Halloween baby, and I love October. I love everything about it. I love to be outside. I love when the first cool snap comes in, especially in the South when it can still be a little warm outside, but then just about at dusk, that first sort of biting wind will come through and it'll make you feel alive again.
Finally cooling down after a hot summer.
Yep.
Do you have a favorite game that you like to play?
This is going to sound dorky, but I like to play Monopoly with all my friends and Yahtzee and
card games. Yeah, for me.
And last question, do you have a favorite color?
Go ahead, Vicky.
Purple. I like purple.
Yeah, I like purple too. I like combinations of color. I like black and silver together. I like purple and black. I like the way they blend. I like not to be an art snob, but I like Rothko a lot and all that color stuff he does, the red field and the blue stuff. So absolutely. And the colors are important. A lot went into the design of all of the books that I've done personally, and this book too. We really kind of went out there and put a lot into designing the cover, because when you got a message like that, it's just a lot of contrast of sort of like hope and despair and these bright yellows and blues. And so at the risk of sounding nerdy about colors, yeah.
Did you guys get along with the idea for the cover, or are you both really flexible? Like, yeah, that's great. Yeah, you like that one more? No problem.
Sort of went like that. Yeah, exactly. We didn't quite know what we wanted for the cover, and we had a really great designer who worked with us and gave us some options, and then we just started, that one, we like this one best, and let's just go with that, and then, start developing it.
There's something to just rolling with stuff and being grateful for the outcomes.
Yeah, it's, you get the happy accident sometimes, but I always struggle with the balance of, you got to take care of business, but if you can try to control it too much, then it comes out all restricted and lifeless and airless. And as a writer, you struggle with that because writers are usually a little bit of control freaks. We have to be. It's part of how you build worlds.
That world building thing is often the struggle, right? It's got to be just believable enough. Well, balance. Jamie, Blaine, and Vicky Lanzone, thank you so much for stopping by.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You have been listening to another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast with your host, Alison Nissen. Alison out. Ooh, we're all done.
We always have that problem of going, is it my turn to talk, or do I wait? Do I wait for... I don't know if you can edit those out or if you just roll with it, but
Vicky Lanzone is Program Manager for Street Life Ministries in the Bay Area of California. She sometimes dreams of a career as a stand-up comedian. Jamie Blaine is the author of Midnight Jesus and Mercy Never Sleeps, and his writings have been featured in publications around the world. He is a USA Today, Wall Street Journal, and New York Times bestselling author. Their book, Life is Crazy and We're All Gonna Die, a book about hope in strange places, is available at lifeiscrazybook.com. For more information about the Florida Writers Association, visit us at floridawriters.org. Until next time.